A very good afternoon to you and welcome to Opinion 2018. It is Wednesday, the 7th of March 2018. And on Opinion today, we are looking at consumer crisis. First off the blocks is the Kenya Power, Ripoff, so to put it. Your tokens, the value you get out of it, are massive ripoff. We're going to be looking at that. And there's an article posted by NASA on the same about how the billions are being robbed from you and how you're getting very little value for your money because cartels around the supply of power. We're also going to be having a look at KNH. This saga is not going away. It took a tribal dimension yesterday, and also some MPs. About 100 of those are said to have signed a petition saying that the CS in charge, one Madam Karaoke, should also take responsibility. I was ably reminded yesterday by one Edith Sifuna that the illegitimate CS, according to Sifuna, that is. We're also going to be having a look at Kenya rejecting efforts by former US ambassadors to have mediation into the political crisis. And lastly, we're going to be having a look at our financial status. Henry Rotich, the CS for Finance, has indicated that Kenya is broke and has actually recommended the reduction of the monies allocated to counties. So tough times ahead. And joining us in studio today is Boaz Waruku, who is a political activist. He's been in the trenches and is also a political analyst. A sharp brain that you want to pick. Boaz.
Thank you so much, and thanks for giving me the opportunity to be with you here.
Wonderful. Very nice shirt as well.
Please, it has nothing to do with the shirt. It has everything to do with what is ailing Kenya.
Yes, it has
and
everything
that's
to do.
why I honored this.
Yes, and we are grateful. We are grateful
so
for
much.
finding your time. Before we get into the discussions today, I was telling you, there's your picture. There's your picture in the cells. Which cell was this and what was this about? Maybe just to refresh the memory of maybe persons who may know you or who may not know where this country has come from.
When you tell me you saw my picture in the cells, I won't tell which cell that is because I know I've been to so many of them. I know I was in the cells right from my days at the university.
Yes.
I know I've also been in the cells immediately after leaving campus and with the constitutional reform movement.
Yes.
Some of this you say you get certification. When you are GK remand in Nakuru, that is level 1.
GK remand level 1.
When you are at the cold cells of Njoro, police with flooded water, during that very cold period, you can say that is level 2 because GK remand is in the highland, Milimani, but Njoro is down there. But when you are in committee, I don't know whether that is level 4 or level 5, because that is when you are demanding that you can't be annually celebrating this one person called Jomo Kenyatta in a Kenyatta Day. We have so many heroes who have struggled for this country. So we do not want this pronunciation about a Kenyatta Day. We want a Heroes Day. And indeed, we organized a parallel one, but the cops came, sent by Moi, and we found ourselves in committee. But you see now, thank God, the Constitution has a Heroes Day, so the Mashujaa Day. And so the genesis of this are from there. But also, I think the one that you could have seen, which one could... Okay, now this must have been the Langata Road Primary School.
Langata Road
when,
Primary
I think this Arap Mashamba guy is a very sharp Shamba hunter.
He has an eye for idle plot.
He just attempted to grab the playing field of the children. And at the time, because I was doing a lot of advocacy work to ensure we have free, quality public education.
Yes.
And that must also include the right of the children to play. But if one so-called big shot is annexing the playground of the children, I found myself going there in solidarity. But let me tell you, Baggy, what happened. That's the morning I was taking my son to school. And in the morning, he just goes along Langat Road. He just said, Daddy, look at that that child. He's carrying the ball, but where is he going to play? Because you see, that place has been, first of all, has been, because they directed the war. I felt bit a little bit, but I told him, I'm taking you to school. I'll be back to help them get it back. But before long, by around 3 o'clock, I was in the police cells because I joined the students and I encouraged those pupils to make the loudest noise they could. Wow. And finally, of course, I think the rest is history. So a number of these things, just to put it in perspective, I think the struggle for change in Kenya has benefited greatly from the efforts of so many foot soldiers, and I salute them. Unfortunately, so many of them have lost their lives. So many have had their limbs dismembered, and they have been punctured to date. You'll find lots of the comrades we had. I mean, sorry to mention, but look at Ndugu Paddy Onyango. Up to now, the guy can only use a walking stick to be, so you were completely paralyzed or you're punctured. You can't continue running your life normally. A number of the others, like I think I would be thinking of the likes of Solomon Moruli, who were burned in their cubicles, the pretext that they committed suicide. I know this young man, Biongo from Nyeri, who, because the students had rioted and the so-called business community, they've always been there. There was a business community around Njoro that declared that they didn't want to see any student out there. Crazily enough, that business community was armed. And before we realized it, this young man was murdered and dumped in the swimming pool, and you're being told, oh, he's drowned. But sensibly looking at that, the guy has no water in the tummy, the blood clots in the nostrils, and the post-mortem just gave it so succinctly that this guy died out of a blunt object on the back of them. So I'm just giving examples of so many of such. And this brings me to a realization that I think the younger generation of today should know. What we have been facing is a case where the system which captures the state, that determines who climbs to what position, is so vicious, and they are so careful that they look around. They know, oh, that which has been hatched today is likely to be a serious cock. Let's take it out. That one, let's take it out. And they have taken out so many of such comrades. Thank God some of the people are still around, and I'm happy to be witnessing the efforts of a number of soldiers even of today who are still struggling to liberate this country. So in terms of a background and the perspective, I really encourage the young people to think very carefully and to know that whatever little they do, they should do it in solidarity with one another, and to watch the backs of each one of them. Be your brother or your sister's keeper. Because this cartel is on the loose. This cartel does not care at all. Right now, I think we're just about to witness the burial of Evans Njoroge of Meru University. That burial is a burial that should never have happened. A young student leader who understands that a majority of the students who make it to the university are from very poor background. And because these universities of ours nowadays are more of money minting or money making enterprises, they just want to raise fees. When you raise fees, you're simply knocking these people out of the learning opportunity. So what does he do? He organizes. He's a leader. He's been elected. He has to organize that we have to resist. And this resisting, it is not just us within the national resistance movement. People resist in different spheres and spaces. So when he organizes that, you saw how those guys literally followed him to where he was hiding in a compound of a mother somewhere there, because based on the report that has been shared, these people just pumped bullets into his head. You know,
And he dies just like that.
He's dead. Unfortunately, we are mourning. Start with the parents mourning. And once you lose such a life, you've lost it. We've lost Adungosi. We've lost Ntaiwa Kuraro. We have lost Karemi Ndozo. We have lost GP Oulu. We have lost so many. I mean, these are people that you can count. And the moment you count, the first thing you start asking yourself, how are their families coping? And what they were standing up for, they struggled for, has it been achieved? Not yet. So the system or this cartel, these people who have captured the state, they are vicious. We know they exist. In fact, they are just looking around and checking who is next, because that is their modus operandi. They look at you and nab you, and that is the end of it. So the young people must be very careful. Be in networks and in solidarity with one another, but don't be scared. Because let me tell you, the moment you get scared and retreat and say, I've given up, that is exactly what they want. They want to achieve a status where nobody questions them, where they determine who will be the president in 2050, even at this particular moment, where they determine how much of the resources would be collected, even at this particular moment, when they determine how much of those resources will go to which region, because they hold the monopoly of manipulation. And in fact, I think it is also high time that the public called for a thorough, people-based investigation into the state capture in Kenya. At least in South Africa, they are using the judicial system to investigate that. In Kenya, right now, I won't trust the judiciary to go that length and investigate it. I would put my faith in a people-based institution or people organized to really investigate how this has been captured. Because once we bring that out to the fore, we would start understanding why we are having the crisis one after the other.
Yes.
You placed the crisis of the consumer crisis. Look at what is happening to our electricity and all that. The very first thing when the Uhuru and Ruto administration came on board through very suspicious means of 2013, you saw the first thing they did, the umeme kwa water.
Oh yeah, last mile.
They ensured that as many of the people as possible are connected. The intentions were very clear. It's not because they actually want to give you electricity. It's because, like this, the baobab tree, when the roots go down, it's because it's looking for water so that it draws it. And basically, I think this is what they've done. Then they start slapping you with what?
Let me just go through some of the article here.
Yes.
And it is saying there was an investigative piece that was stopped, investigative piece done by KTN News, and it was stopped before it aired. And it is saying the initial pay bill number was 888880, and now we have 3 others.
Yes.
Meaning that if you bought a token of 500 bob, you are to get 42 units, you only get 22. So that's a whole 20 units missing.
Yes.
And just look at the numbers that we used as approximately 638 million kilowatt hours monthly. So we are talking about something worth 6 billion Kenya shillings monthly. And a lot of Kenyans are not getting value for their tokens. There is nobody to explain this. And the question then that begs is Kenya Power sticking to its mandate to supply power, or has it gone into another business altogether?
Ask yourself first, who regulates Kenya Power? 2, who are the main shareholders of Kenya Power? The government is a shareholder. But you know the other
Yeah,
shareholders.
50 plus 1%.
Yes.
Yes.
But you know the other shareholders. Ask Uhuru Kenyatta what the mother is doing in shareholding of Kenya Power. Ask this, this so-called businessmen and women from a royal family, what really is their stake in this Kenya Power. So, the kind of process that they carry out, they look at, how can we make more money? Now they want to make money using the system that they have set in place. The first thing you're used to, in fact, I'm among those who just even memorized the pay bill number of the Kenya P. You just put so many zeros and put so many eights and put zero at the end. And then, okay, But then all of a sudden, you're told now, you can use these others.
Yes.
So in other words, they know, because these are things to do with how they manipulate people using technology. When you lose 20 units for every purchase, the cost of that per household, the cost of that for the entire population, and the estimators per the investigation that you are referring to, and which rightfully, they would not actually allow you to beam it out there. That's why they had to stop it. It's because when a Kenyan starts to understand that we are being ripped off in the excess of 6 billion plus every month, and this is not going to so many of the people, just going to a few that you can count with just one hand. These fingers would put it there. It means almost each of them is going with 1 billion plus.
Monthly.
That's a month. And the following day you come and start here worshipping them that, you are blessed by God. You are wealthy. You have worked hard. That is the hard work that they do. Manipulation
let me just
and conning.
Cut you short and read a comment. Then I want to come back to the shareholding.
Yeah.
Evans is saying, have you noticed that when there's a power blackout, you lose 2 units when the power returns? This grand theft must cease. You can steal votes, but electricity is too much to steal. It is very unfair. Kenya Power. Charles, you're saying, I compared the fuel cost last year to this year. The difference was immoral. Fuel costs rose from 290 to 1,400. No one could give an explanation. Instead, they were ready to disconnect. I think this is the fuel adjustment.
The fuel, the so-called the Energy Regulation Commission.
Yes.
Which you put there instead of protecting the people. They are the ones, like now they've just announced that fuel prices are likely to go. Why would they announce? You've seen that in the media today?
Yes.
That we are likely to have higher pump prices. We are likely to have energy prices going up. They're alluding this to some legislations going on. Definitely, these are people who know that they are playing a game. They are part of the captors who have captured the state. They want to make more money for them. I want to thank our brother Apollo Mboya.
Yes.
He is single-handedly in court dealing with this matter. And indeed, I think let's also thank Okia Omtata. He's also doing his bit to help this. But Apollo Mboya has specifically single increase. You're right. So it is an increase.
Yes,
How,
Master.
how far do you want us to go to the
than 100. So we are proceeding, we remove her, and we have many Kenyans who are qualified to be CSS. I think she's drunk with power, which is quite unfortunate. You cannot go ahead and fire a CEO for professional mistakes that have been done somewhere. She did not do any investigation. What she did was just go ahead and sack them. We will remove her, and we don't fear anyone. And we've already signed the petition to remove her. Because if there is anybody who to take responsibility, it should be Cicely herself to step aside. And you know,
If
Right.
there's anybody to take risk. So where should the buck stop?
first fish begins to rot from the head? Actually, for me, let me tell you, the first thing is that branch of these confused fellas is a very legitimate branch.
Yes.
Maybe we are blessing them by discussing them.
We are lending them credit.
Yes, but one thing is for certain. Political responsibility is at the presidency, delegated to the cabinet secretary. In Kenya, we've not had this kind of a value system where a public officer would own up and say, that was by mistake. I can just remind you of what the former Secretary for Home Affairs, that is in the UK, this Mr. Blanket, the one who just attempted to fast track papers, some immigration papers for a house help.
Yes.
And because of that attempt, when he made a phone call, just requesting for this to be fast tracked, and then it was brought out in the open, he just owned up and said what he had done cannot qualify him to continue being in that seat. You know, that level of integrity, that level of taking responsibility for whatever action or omission to act in your docket. I think we've never had that case. But come back to what now is this confusion these guys are having. The MPs or the leaders that you see to be talking about this, supposedly are leaders from one particular community. And in their thinking, their mindset is that this position belonged to them. And in Kenya, we have seen cases where actually it's been made to look like some positions are meant for certain tribes.
And should not be touched.
Yeah, and they're untouchable. I mean, if it will come to the internal security, look at how the office of the Inspector General, IG. You remove one Kalenjin, you replace with another Kalenjin, and then you feel that that is okay. So maybe the moment that Koros, because now we are dealing with the situation of Kenyatta National Hospital, when Koros was appointed, and it must have been then a negotiation among
Take
the
this,
community. Yeah,
leave
take
this
this.
one.
Yes. So whatever they negotiated, let them deal with it in
So
their own.
competence has no room in this discussion.
If there was anything competence, my friend would be discussing how on earth would you walk into an hospital and then you find yourself in a theater. You're being operated on. Those so many funny things. How on earth would you come in with your child to be attended, and all you end up with is that one of your twins, and one of them has disappeared? How on earth would a patient who has come into the wards to be attended to get raped in the corridors? How on earth? And here you are, a chief executive, whose responsibility is to ensure that that facility, that institution only discharges functions that it's given under the law. All those that I've mentioned are not part of the functions they are supposed to be discharging. In other words, nobody supervises, nobody cares. In fact, that tells you that is a symptom of certain rot, something which is rotting inside, and it's just coming out bit by bit. I think a diagnosis requires to be done because doctors are used to doing that kind of incisive diagnosis. But maybe they need to be helped by a little, some of the people who are a little bit more objective, because it's like the professionalism has been thrown out. Demotivation is a factor here. Definitely, if the population of the staff there are so demotivated, then they tell you nothing good can come out of it. So all this mishandling of one item after the other, and it becomes the norm. I think this cannot just be let to go. Responsibility must be assigned to a particular person, and consequences of not acting in the right manner actually should follow. The other thing is that when we are looking at these public institutions, the Constitution of Kenya 2010 did provide that when you are creating positions and filling those positions, merit, competitiveness, these are factors which must be considered. Not
Primarily.
it is not that I come from which community, and because we are the ones in power, and because the cabinet secretary is from my community, so I'm the one who was assigned there, when I'm completely devoid of whatever the competencies, the skills, the depth of knowledge required of me really to discharge that mandate. I think in that case we have lots of problems, and that is why Kenyatta National Hospital, as it is, they have lots of problems. Even that so-called cabinet secretary herself. Just the other day, she was in another docket. She was vetted in that previous so-called vetting, and even now, they tell you now, once vetted to be in charge of prison, you can also be in charge of health, for instance. Which kind of reasoning is that? That is where we have reached in Kenya. It's because there are people who simply do not want Kenyans to have good things, to have better life, to have Maisha Bora, which as ODM we've constantly been talking about. Anything for them can pass.
Anything goes.
Nothing credible. Issues of integrity thrown out of the wind. In fact, you go to Article 10 of our Constitution, those so-called values and principles of governance, those could be like foreign materials in their head. So for as long as we keep on having this gang in charge, definitely I doubt whether things would change much. Because even if you are to take the matter to Parliament, that tyranny of stolen numbers would still be there. You face it. They'll also be called from the house on the hill where this guy has refused
I hear nowadays they have to get permission to speak even on talk shows like this.
Of course, they have been gagged. Even what to say, they must be told. Go, and you can actually come and you find that somebody can't reason beyond what they have been told to reason.
Very well.
So,
Most unfortunate. Let me go through some comments. Well, Musa Musus, you're saying you're watching. Thank you very much. Benjamin is saying,